The company was already looking at me when I stopped being myself and inherited somebody else's ruin. One breath, I was on my bed with a dying phone and a book I was too irritated to finish. The next, I was standing in a cold rehearsal room with dust in the light and 30 actors in a semicircle. And a girl in a green cardigan was holding up a script with pages torn out of it and saying, "It was in her bag. My sides for the whole second act. She's had them since Tuesday." I knew that room. I knew that cardigan. I had finished the book at 2 in the morning, a novel called The Understudy, and the girl was Posey Wren, the luminous newcomer every reader adored. And I was apparently Coralie Vane, the aging leading lady whose entire function across 300 pages was to be caught sabotaging her replacement, dismissed in disgrace, and dead of pneumonia in a rented room by the last chapter. And then I saw them, drifting in the dusty light above Posey's shoulder, like breath on a window, faint gray letters that nobody else in that room could see. Finally, Coralie gets what she deserves. Posey is such an angel for even saying it kindly. Watch her go cruel. She always goes cruel. I did not go cruel. I put my hands in my coat pockets because they had started to shake, and I thought, with the flat calm of a woman who has fallen a long way and has not yet landed, all right, so this is the room. Then I am going to read every one of these little floating spoilers, and I am going to take this play apart before the tea break. The director, Hollis Ward, sat on the edge of the table with his glasses pushed up, and everyone waited for him, because everyone had waited for him for 20 years. "Coralie," he said, not unkindly, "is there anything you'd like to say?" A comment slid past him. "Hollis is the only decent man in this whole book. He's so patient with her. And in the novel, Coralie said the wrong thing here. She said something magnificent and vicious about Posey's diction, and got herself sacked less for the sabotage than for the ugliness of the defense. So instead, I said, yes. Which bag?" Hollis blinked. "Which bag were they found in? Because I've had the same canvas bag for 11 years. It lives on the hook by the door with everyone else's. And it has a torn strap I've been meaning to fix since March, and anybody in this company could pick it out of a fire." I paused. "And which Tuesday? Because I wasn't here on Tuesday. I was at the Rowe Street Clinic having a scan from 10 until 2:30, and they take your name at the desk, and they write it in a book." I did not know that from memory. I knew it because 11 minutes earlier, while I was still working out how to breathe, a comment had drifted overhead saying, "The Tuesday thing is the biggest plot hole in this book. Coralie is literally at the hospital. Nobody ever checks it." I had stared at those letters like a woman handed a rope through a window. "Ring them," I said. "It takes 4 minutes." I need to tell you what Coralie Vane actually was, because the book had spent 300 pages telling me, and I had believed every word while I was safely outside it. She was difficult. That was the word. She had refused a costume. She had made a young actress cry. In the 20 minutes it took somebody to walk to the office and telephone a clinic. I went through her life like a stranger reading a diary, and every fact in the book was true, and every single one had been turned 90 degrees. She refused the costume because it was cut for a woman 30 years younger, and she had asked 3 times, in writing, for an alteration. And the wardrobe requests went through the office, and the office was Hollis. She made a young actress cry in the year 19 by telling her She was pushing the vowels, which is a note, and the version that went round the building was told by the man who ran the building. And there was a letter, too. In chapter 12, Coralie writes to the board asking for a meeting about her billing, 3 pages, which the readers all agree is grasping and desperate, and which the board never answers. The board never answers because the board never received it, because it went through the office, because everything went through the office. Every cruelty in that novel was real. Somebody had simply been standing behind all of them, holding the post. Thank you for listening to Channel Crystal Novel. The clinic confirmed it in 4 minutes, and the room did the arithmetic together. And that was when Hollis Ward stood up and did the only thing he had needed to do in 20 years, which was to be the most reasonable man in the building. Then it's a mix-up, he said warmly. And I'm sorry, Coralie, truly. But look at what this has become. He turned so the company could see his face. This woman has given this theater 26 years, and I have watched her be lonely in it for at least 10, and I have never once blamed her for that, and I am not going to start in front of a company. Let's be kind. Let's break for tea. And it landed. I felt the room lean toward him and the floor tilt under me, because it was aimed at the true thing. She had been lonely in that building for 10 years. That part was not a lie, and he had been in the room for every year of it. And he was now using her loneliness to close the subject with everybody thanking him for his grace. The comments turned like a shoal of fish. See, that's why we love Hollis. He's protecting her even now, honestly. King. And for one long breath, I sat down in a plastic chair under a name that was not mine, and understood exactly how Coralie Vane had died in a rented room. Then I remembered I could read the air, because 2 days earlier, in a dull hour in the wings, the comments had been gossiping about a chapter I would never live to reach, and one of them had written, "The callback book in Hollis's desk is such a good detail. He's been doing it since before Posey was born. Chapter 31 is insane. A callback book. In the desk. A reveal I was scheduled to die before reaching, dropped into the air over my head by an audience that had no idea I was listening. So I did not argue with him. I said, "Before tea, Hollis, would you fetch the callback book from your desk drawer, or shall I ask Nella?" And Nella Prine, who had been company stage manager for 19 years and had a face like a closed shop, put down her pencil and said, "I have wanted somebody to ask me that for 11 years," and went and came back with a hardback notebook. And Hollis did not move a muscle, and the stillness told that room more than any confession. It was all in there in his own tidy hand. 11 years of casting. Beside each season, the leading woman, her age, and the year in which she was to be moved on. Decided in advance, sometimes 3 years in advance, always with a note on the mechanism. Understudy pressure, wardrobe friction, press item unreliability. He had not been sacking women. He had been scheduling them and building the reasons afterwards, because a theater that seems to renew itself looks visionary, and a man who does the renewing gets called fearless in profiles for 2 decades. Coralie Vane appeared on a page with a date beside her that was 9 weeks away, and Posey Wren, the luminous newcomer, appeared 4 pages later in the same hand with her own date, 4 seasons out, because of course she did. Posey read it over my shoulder and made a sound I have never forgotten, and Vaughn, the leading man, who had never in 300 pages had a thought that did not exit through his mouth, said to Hollis, at volume, "You told me she'd never look in the desk." 9 words. Hollis said the only thing he said after the book came out, in the flat tone you would use to correct a spelling error. The company has always been managed for the company's good, which is a confession of 11 years, delivered by the most careful man in the county, because the truly cold ones never fear the room. They only forget it is there. 6 of the 11 women were traceable. 4 of them came. One, a woman called Mariel Sandu, who had left the profession in the year 14 and now managed a garden center, read her own name in the note beside it, wardrobe friction, and said, "I told my husband for 10 years that I hadn't done anything wrong, and he was very good about not believing me." The board removed Hollis Ward in a meeting that took 19 minutes. The Arts Council review took longer and reached the year 11 before it stopped. His name came off the season brochure and off the studio space that had been named for him, and the drama school where he had taught for 16 years let the appointment lapse without a telephone call, which for a man like that is a burial. He was not prosecuted. There is no law against a notebook. He simply stopped being asked, which was the only thing he had ever wanted, and the only thing that could be taken. Posey found me at the stage door afterwards, white as paper, and said, "I want to hate you. It would be so much easier." And I said, "I know, he was counting on that. It was the cheapest thing he ever bought." She is 34 now and runs the company with me, and Nella Prine still keeps the book, the real one, the new one, which is only a list of who is contracted and until when, and it lives on a shelf in the green room where anybody can pick it up. That was the single rule I made when we took the place over, and it gets said out loud at every first rehearsal, by Nella, in the driest voice in the building. Nothing about you gets written down where you cannot read it. The comments stopped about a year in. I looked up one ordinary Tuesday in the wings and realized I had not seen one in months, and I understood the book was finished, and that I had read past the last page and out the other side into a life that was nobody's plot but mine. I do not miss the spoilers, knowing the ending is only a gift when you are trapped in somebody else's. So let me ask you, since you stood in that rehearsal room with her, did she go far enough, or was she still too merciful? Comment justice if the ending was perfect. Comment harder if you wanted an even colder revenge. Your comments decide how ruthless the next ending should be. Like and subscribe if you want to be here for the next.